meeting to order. Thank you for your patience. Sarah, would you please take roll?
Commissioner Kelly?
Here.
Commissioner Siegfried? Here. Commissioner Kipp and Commissioner Oakes are absent and will be swearing in Commissioner Chamberlain in just a minute.
All right, I am now going to read the oath of office for Dean Chamberlain to become a planning commissioner. So raise your hand. I, Dean Chamberlain, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Minnesota. And faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Planning Commissioner. Of the City of Bayport. In the County of Washington and State of Minnesota. To the best of my ability. So help me God. All right, congratulations. Okay, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Is there any discussion of the meeting minutes from February 18th? Regular meeting? No, I reviewed as well. Okay, then I move to approve the meeting minutes from February 18th, 2025.
Okay, I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, next on the agenda are the public hearings. There are a lot of them. I will remind you at the end of each application, but once your application is done, you are welcome to stay, but you can also feel free to leave. You don't need to stay for the whole meeting because we have a lot of exciting stuff going on tonight. All right. The first application is 13 Point Road project. It is to consider variances to allow grading on steep slopes and allow encroachment into the 40-foot bluff line setback for a single-family home remodel reconstruction project located at 13 Point Road, submitted by Bruce Lenzen Design Build. Sarah, if you would introduce the applicant and then who will provide a short presentation on the project, sorry. It's been a long day.
Commissioner Kelly, members of the Planning Commission, I'd like to introduce Bruce Lenzen. He is the representative for the project on behalf of homeowners.
Good evening, thank you. A brief overview, it's a single-family residential home, and the reason, as stated, is because of the variance that will be required because of the technicality of your ordinance about grading and filling, and then 40 feet of the on slopes greater than 12% and 40 feet. Other than that, the home meets the criteria for all the riverway and is compliant in every element. Pretty straightforward. So, okay. Any questions?
Not yet. Well, we might call you back up
Okay.
if we have questions. Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Daniel Licht with the Planning Company on behalf of the City of Bayport. As outlined by the chair and the applicant, the request tonight at 13 Point Road is for variances related to grading on slopes greater than 12% and also encroachment into the 40-foot bluff line setback. The subject site at 13 Point Road is located obviously on the point along the St. Croix River. The comprehensive plan guides the property for low-density residential development. The property is zoned R1 single-family estate district. That's also subject to the lower St. Croix River Management Ordinance, as well as floodplain management regulations as well. The entire point is developed with single-family dwellings on similar-sized lots, all served by private septic and well systems. The site plan that was provided for the proposed improvement, basically this is taking down the existing single-family home to the foundation and then constructing a rather large expansion of the home as well as a larger patio area adjacent to it as part of the examination of the request, the lot complies with the requirements of the R1 district in terms of lot area and lot width. Impervious surface within the Lower St. Croix Management District is limited to 20%. They're bringing the site into that requirement at just under that 19.99%, so getting it right up to the limit. With regards to the setbacks from the river itself, the house and proposed deck with the pool and pool house, etc., meets the ordinary high water setback as well as the bluff line setback. Where the bluff setback comes into play is these yellow highlighted areas on the site plan. Those are essentially man-made creations from when the house was originally constructed. The way the ordinance is written, those are counted as bluffs and subject to the setback requirements, even though they were man-made, so thus necessitating consideration of the variance. The tree removal, existing trees are shown on the site plan. They're removing 2 trees from the front yard to accommodate the grading of the site and the driveway. Otherwise, nothing on the riverside will be impacted. Any trees that are damaged during construction would need to be replaced as part of an administrative process. With respect to the grading plan, same issue as with the setback variance. These are 12% slopes that were created with construction of the existing house. They're being altered to accommodate the expansion and reconstruction of the house. DNR staff did comment on the amount of fill being brought into the site to accomplish the proposed expansion of the house, but provided all of the regulations are complied with, the expansion seems appropriate. The developer is also in part bringing in this fill to raise the elevation of the house so that it complies with the floodplain regulations, in essence lifting the house and 15 feet around it outside of the floodplain limits. And then also providing for installation of a new subsurface treatment system as well as a private well. This is the building plan overview. Basically, again, removing most of the existing house down to the foundation. The new house is 2 stories at grade, again with the raising of the site to accommodate flood elevations. The defined height is just over 23 feet, so it is within the 35 feet allowed within the shoreline management area. And the developer would be required to use the color palette appropriate for the riverway corridor. So city staff's recommendation is that with respect to the variance, is that the bluff is a man-made condition. The variance is necessary to allow for not only the house expansion, but to comply with the provisions of the floodplain ordinance. There are comments included in your packet from the Department of Natural Resources and the Middle St. Croix Watershed Management Organization, but city staff is recommending approval subject to the 11 stipulations in our report from June 18th.
All right, I would like to now, is that all of the staff? Okay, just want to make sure the way it's written on here. Okay, I would like to open the public hearing and invite anyone wishing to comment to come forward to the podium, state their name and the street address for the record. Anyone? All right. Okay, I'm going to move to close the public hearing on this application. Is there a second?
Second that.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I would like to entertain further discussion or questions from the Planning Commission on the application.
What did the Middle St. Croix Watershed say? Did I miss that in here? I mean, there's. Did I see it?
It was attached to the report,
Okay.
so they had no issues with the application.
Okay, they're fine, that they agree that it's a man-made bluff and.
So
Okay.
is there a possibility, since it is, I can't remember the exact number, but it's fairly close to the edge of the bluff. Isn't that right?
So the house itself from the riverway bluff isn't close.
Okay.
It's these 2 bluffs to the side of the house, if you will, that were caused by when they filled the house to bring it, or filled the site to bring in the new house, or the original house.
Okay.
So,
But are they going to do erosion control
Yes.
and other things to keep it from?
Correct. So as part of the grading of the site, there is an erosion control plan that they will implement while they bring in the fill and construct the retaining walls, et cetera. So.
I have a question about the erosion control too, is who, I will say polices that to make sure that there isn't inadvertently stuff that, erosion control can fill up and then spill over if nobody's maintaining it. I'm just curious who's.
Madam Chair, so that is done through the building department as well as the city engineer and public works staff as well will oversee that.
Any other questions on this application? All right, then I move to recommend to the city council to approve a variance to allow grading on steep slopes and then a variance to allow encroachment into the 40-foot bluff line setback for a single-family home remodel reconstruction project located at 13 Point Road, subject to the findings of facts and conditions of approval recommended by staff.
I second the motion.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations, 13 Point Road contract. All right, again, a reminder, if you want to leave, you can after your application, but you are certainly welcome to remain. Next, we have the 10 Point Road project. This is considering variances to extend the roof line, allow grading on steep slopes, and allow encroachment into the 40-foot bluff line setback, and a conditional use permit to allow alternative flood-proofing methods through piers to elevate the existing single-family home and remodel reconstruction project located at 10 Point Road, submitted by Kell Architects. Sarah, will you introduce the applicant, please?
Commissioner Kelly, one question. This is Megan Kell, and she'll be presenting the project on behalf of homeowners.
Any of these?
It should just be.
Oh, I can take yours. Good evening. Thanks for hearing our proposal for 10 Point Road. Sounds like there's a lot going on in Point Road this time of year. I am Megan Kell. I'm Kell Architects. I'm here on behalf of the homeowner, Julia Kemmer, who is also here with us. At the heart of this proposal is something we believe the commission doesn't hear often. And that's a project driven not by expansion, but by reduction. A dramatic reduction in building and site coverage in service of a healthier, more sustainable relationship with the land. For Ms. Kemmer, the most important goal is positive stewardship. Her family has cared for this land for generations, and this rebuild is about continuing that care, not only by reducing impact, but by creating a healthy, energy-efficient, and flood-resilient home that coexists with the landscape rather than competing. The impetus for this rebuild stems from two major challenges with this site. First, it is highly energy inefficient, this home. A significant portion of the existing square footage is consumed by an aging and unused indoor pool, a major source of heat loss and energy waste, of course. Second, the home floods nearly every spring. The main level sits below the 100-year floodplain, and each year the owner must shut down the septic system and well system, evacuate the property, and return only after floodwaters have receded. The result is repeated damage, intensive cleanup, and a major disruption to healthy year-round living. Between the removal of the guest house and the reduction of the main house, over 7,000 square feet of impervious coverage will be removed and replaced with native plantings and natural grading. The proposed home design is almost 2,000 square feet smaller than the existing home. The proposed design is compact and vertically organized to elevate the property above the floodplain and allow water and air to flow naturally beneath it, respecting, not resisting, the site's floodplain context. The stormwater and septic plan, developed in coordination with the Middle St. Croix Water Management Organization, has already received approvals. Existing vegetation is largely preserved and tree cover screens the new home from the river. And before we get into, I think what you're going to go over with the variance request and CUP request, I'll just go through our PowerPoint that we've been working with the city on over a couple of years now to refine. First, I'll go over the photos of the existing house. This home has been built onto or renovated a couple other times in the past, but still in the same family as Ms. Kemmer. This is a view of the approach to the house, so this is down the driveway. We've included a few photos, drone photos that we had taken of views from the river, so you can see that the house is virtually, you can't see it through the trees and foliage from all the banks. Existing floor plan is here on your screens. The one with the red on it is, the red is outlining where the buildable area actually is within block lines here. There's not a house that can possibly fit within the buildable area. So our approach was to actually work with the main home as to not disturb any other part of the site that has not been disturbed yet. This is a close-up of the two structures that we're talking about. The guest house is in the upper left yellow, and the lower house is the main house. The guest house will be completely removed, and all of its driveway and sidewalk impervious surfaces would also be removed. The existing structure is 5164 square feet with 1,764 square feet of deck. Our proposed remodel is 3,340 square feet, 1,270 square feet of deck. You can see the blue is our proposed structure overlaid upon the existing structure, which is in the yellow, obviously. Existing floor plan. This is really showing you the elevations that do not comply with floodplain areas. So our main slab of the garage is at 693, which is our 100-year floodplain. The existing living level is below at 690.7 feet. And the existing pool deck is below also at 691.3. And of course, the pool goes lower than that. So our proposal is to remove the pool and other excessive living areas that the homeowners do not need. We're bringing our garage slab up 0.67 feet to clear any issues with floodplain, but it's in the same location that the garage is existing. The main entry is being pulled up to 694.17 feet for its finished elevation. And the main level is lofting above 7 feet higher than the current main level living to 697.17. So here are images of existing versus the new in rendering format. Just so you can see side by side the differences as you approach the house. We have a landscape architect involved as well, which this goes to show that we're trying to create more and more vegetation around the house for more visual appearance. This is a direction southeast from the point. You'll see this sort of stone structure in the front. That's an existing pizza oven that the owners want to keep. You'll see this little concrete sort of wall that's jutting out into the landscape that is existing we would prefer to keep it. This is a direction from the southwest, looking at the one-story property. It, of course, is lofted up above the grade. You are seeing a lot of foliage and a growth that we're hoping to place there just to kind of hide the bottom portion of these piers, which you could instead see all the way through the bottom of the house if these were not there. And another view from the west, or of the west side. And a view of the northeast side. This is really showing the 1-2-story area of the house where we have the garage on the main level, and above that is the owner's suite. We are preferring to put the owner's suite above the existing garage footprint so that we can reduce the size of the footprint of the house. And I'll briefly go over the materials. We're trying to do all natural finishes by using true wood, thermally modified wood that will gray out over time, much like birch trees, and actually decking as well. We have a little bit of stone on the building near the entry. Metal roof would be traditional standing seam metal roof. Concrete piers would be under the building and you're not really going to see them. They'll be in shadow at all times. And feature windows would be a copper clad, which is also a natural color. And then an Anderson window color for the typical windows. So here is architectural rendering without all of the trees blocking it. Pointing out a little bit more about where those materials are. The whole building really is that thermally modified wood siding to keep it very quiet. We've got metal roof. We've also got a green roof over the flat roof link area between the garage and the main house itself. And you can see in this picture pretty clearly how the concrete piers are lifting the building above the site. This is from the south side of the south elevation, and this is where you can also see that very clearly that these piers are lifting the house above grade. And again. I can answer any questions when anyone has them. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now for the exciting stuff. Okay, so as Chair outlined, free variance is extending the roof line above the existing structure because this is a non-conforming building with respect to the bluff line setback. Grading on slopes, again greater than 12%, encroachment into the bluff line setback for the proposed structure as well, and then the conditional use permit for alternative flood proofing methods. Comprehensive plan, again, this is basically a repeat of 13 Point Road, low density residential, zoned R1 estate district, subject to lower St. Croix management regulations as well as floodplain rules. Surrounding uses are single-family homes consistent with the use of the existing property. As noted during the architect's presentation, there are 2 homes on the property, one being a guest house located to the north. That one is being removed as part of the project. Lot requirements, the lot does comply with the minimum lot area and width requirement of the R1 district. Impervious surface is being reduced from 12% to 7%, still well within the 20% allowed within the St. Croix River district. The setbacks to the bluff line, the encroachment basically occurs on this side of the structure because the bluff line comes right up to this retaining wall. You'll notice on the east side of the property, this is the bluff line. So a portion of the existing deck is within the bluff, but the main portion of the structure, including the existing or the proposed, doesn't encroach. They will remove a couple trees on the interior side of the property, but will not affect, obviously, the view from the river. And then the grading of the slopes that are greater than 12% is basically occurring in the area between the main house and the guest house as part of the removal of that structure. So the new addition to the home isn't impacting those slopes. And then, again, as the architect outlined, they'll replace the existing septic system with a new one that complies with flood rules. The building plans were reviewed in detail, just highlighting the flood construction. The previous application for 13 Point Road used the primary means of addressing that by bringing in fill to create an area 15 feet around the perimeter of the structure that is at or above the flood elevation. The zoning ordinance allows you to raise the structure on piers, such as proposed here, with a conditional use permit. The main thing the city is looking for with the conditional use permit is to make sure that the building plans are certified to comply with the floodplain regulations and construction methods. The second is that the access to the property is at floodplain elevation, so that if the structure is basically raised out of the floodplain, you can still escape if there is a flood, and that is the case here. The increase in building height, again, is this section of the structure going from the single-story garage to include the owner's suite. Staff is supportive of the request, given the reduction of the impervious surface, and that this section of the building does comply with the bluff line setback. The additional height is still within the 35 feet allowed by the zoning ordinance, so there is no real impact to the river in terms of allowing this increase in height, and it's not relevant to the non-conforming condition of the building. So city staff recommends approval of the application. The encroachment into the bluff line is not increased. The grading is necessary for removal of the second dwelling. The conditional use permit for the floodplain construction is appropriate given the architectural design of the building and the administrative building permit process that will follow. DNR comments, as well as those from the Middle St. Croix Watershed Management Organization, were included in your packet. And we are recommending approval subject to the 10 conditions in our report from June 18th. I would also add, and the architect alluded to this, that this project has been undergoing extensive discussions involving city staff, DNR staff, and watershed management organizations. There's been at least 2 on-site meetings that have happened, so this has gotten a lot of attention and a lot of review, and the architect has done a good job incorporating comments from city staff to make this approval a relatively straightforward affair.
Thank you. All right, now I would like to open the public hearing and invite anyone wishing to comment to come forward to the podium. Please state your name and street address for the record. All right, then I'm going to move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I would like to entertain further discussion or questions from the Planning Commission on the application. So I guess I would like to say that this is exciting to see how you're wanting to work with the land and to move forward from, I don't know, old versions of construction. So this seems like a great project. And I've heard about the flooding over years. It's nice to not have that happening perhaps in the future.
Yeah, I'd just say that I appreciate all the detail that's gone into making it look like it should be part of that kind of natural environment, and especially much more than the more modernist architecture of the house that's out there right now. So I'm supportive of that.
I think it's great too. Which I assume is probably in the works or city engineer for all of the piers, like, so they have to get stamp certified and approved and all of that. You guys have all your restrictions and guidelines they have to follow to make sure it's.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Siegfried, that's correct, and that would be reviewed as part of the building permit process once the variance and conditional use permits are considered by the City Council and approved.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? Please.
Yeah, I was just wondering, and perhaps you don't know the answer to this question right now, but is there any time in the future you might want to put the guest house back or something like that? Is that something you guys have entertained at all? Like, I don't know, if you don't know the answer to that question, okay, I was just curious. No. I just know that housing is important in the community, so it's just wondering.
All right, anybody want to make a motion on this one? Or I can. All right, I move to recommend to the city council to approve variances to extend roof line, allow grading of steep slopes, and allow encroachment into the 40-foot bluff line setback, and a conditional use permit to allow alternative flood-proofing methods through piers to elevate the existing single-family home and remodel reconstruction project located at 10 Point Road, subject to the findings of fact and conditions of approval recommended by staff. All those in favor? Oh, seconded, sorry. They left that part off of this one. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, we are now moving on to the third application, 297 Lake Street project. This is to consider a conditional use permit to allow alternative flood proofing methods, wet flow flood proofing flood vents for the existing single family home and addition project at 297 Lake Street, submitted by Traditional Construction Services. All right, Sarah, could you introduce the applicant?
Commissioner Kelly, this is Brad Smith. He is the homeowner and actually, I believe, is going to be the contractor on this project. So,
Yes.
Brad, go ahead.
How are you doing?
Good.
Good. So a little background. I actually owned this house about 22 years ago. So I owned it through a couple of floods. The idea with this one is we're taking the existing house off of that property and placing it on another lot that I have in town. And then utilizing the existing foundation and adding the flood vents for that portion of basement. And then there's an additional foundation going to the north of it for the new garage. And then the upper floor connects across. And then you would go through a tunnel in between to get to the back to use the tuck-in garage. That's about it.
All right, thank you for
Unless you have any
the
questions.
background. We may,
Yeah.
we'll let you know. Now, Dan, please.
Madam Chair, thank you. Wait for the screen to come up again. So this application that included in the public hearing notice was a variance to grade on slopes greater than 12%, but once staff reviewed the plans that were submitted, we determined there weren't the 12% slope, so that goes by the wayside. Just focusing on conditional use permit for the floodplain construction. Similar to the previous two requests, the comprehensive plan guides this property for low-density residential development. Single-family homes are appropriate in those areas. This site is zoned R2 single-family urban district with the availability of sewer and water utilities to the site. It is also subject to the Lower St. Croix management regulations as well as floodplain rules adjacent to the St. Croix River. Surrounding uses include single-family homes to the south, the city's Lakeside Park to the northwest, and then the Riverside Marina to the southwest. The lot complies with the requirements of the R2 district in terms of lot width and lot area. Impervious surface is being reduced from 30.6% down to 19.99%. As noted in our report, however, there is some concern with the second access to the driveway or to the garage, which is on the back of the home. There's a pad shown in this location for that. There's no driveway shown, which would obviously contribute to the impervious surface. The zoning ordinance requires that garages have paved access. So city staff's recommendation is that the driveway be paved and other impervious surface removed from the plan, or the entranceway be sized such that a vehicle cannot pass through that. That's an item that would need to be resolved between city staff and the developer as this moves forward to city council. With regards to setbacks, the house complies with all the setback requirements, including from the ordinary high water mark and the bluff line of the St. Croix River. In terms of the vegetation, which is shown on the site plan as existing, none is to be removed as part of the construction. And the grading plan obviously complies with the requirements of the zoning ordinance in that no slopes greater than 12% are being addressed, and the city engineers signed off on erosion control plans. The site, again, has public sewer and water utilities, so there are no septic issues on this property. This gives a sense of the building plan. This would be most of the existing foundation to the right side of the screen, with the bridge across the entryway to the back garage, and then the new garage on the north portion of the site. As you can see on the back side, there's the enclosed garage as well as the enclosed flood-proofed areas of the structure. This is the second means of alternative flood-proofing methods that are commonly used, whereby the lower level of the structure is designed to flood with these vents so that the pressure of the flood doesn't collapse the walls inward, and then the water can move freely out as the flood recedes away. So this will be certified again through the building permit process. And then there are some additional approvals that go along with that in terms of documenting the approval as part of the property title. The building height is essentially a single-story structure. It's 22 feet to the top of the curved section above the entryway, and they would use the color palette approved for the St. Croix River bed. So city staff's recommendation is that the conditional use permit be approved, as it's necessary to comply with the floodplain regulations. The request would be subject to comment from the DNR, Middle St. Croix Watershed Management Organization, and we are recommending approval subject to the 12 conditions from our June 18th report, one of those which includes addressing the driveway to the rear garage.
Could you go back to the picture of the structure? First, we're gonna open the public hearing and invite anyone who wishes to comment to come forward to the podium, state their name and street address for the record. All right, he's just fixing the TV for anyone. Okay, so then I will move to close the public hearing. Is there a second? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, at this time, I would like to entertain discussion or questions from the Planning Commission on the application. I wanted the picture of the structure up. Oh, and now it just went away. I'm not, so is the tunnel
These are
structure to go to the second garage behind,
Yep.
is that at or below floodplain?
below.
Below. So it would be cut off if there's a flood.
Correct.
Is that, does anyone have a problem with that?
No, the main access to the property is above the flood elevation.
Okay.
And so the driveway back to the second garage and the second garage itself can be within the floodplain. You're allowed to have storage within that area.
Okay. And the main access is through that tunnel
Correct.
right now. And what, can you explain again? You explained before what you want them to fix, but
Yep.
with the visual, that really helps.
Sure. So right now, this area is not shown to be paved. So and in their narrative, they describe how that second garage is necessary for the occupants of the house to be able to park their vehicles. So if that is going to be used regularly for vehicle access to that garage, you don't want to have erosion, destruction of the grass, etc. Gravel is an impervious surface. The city doesn't allow impervious pavers because of the long-term maintenance concern, so it needs to be a concrete or asphalt surface if that garage is intended to be used for vehicle purposes.
So then if they add that as impervious surface, then they would need to remove impervious surface. It's hard to tell from these pictures, but is it just the driveway or are there sidewalks as
So-
well? Or
Essentially, on this graphic, the outline in red is the impervious surface of the proposed house.
okay,
So there is sidewalk, etc. This is the driveway to the upper garage. The original plan had the driveway to the second garage coming out directly to Lake Street and then through to this pad in the back.
okay. So they, from what I know of what we're getting to later with the change in they have to go down to under 20% for impervious
20%.
surface
Yes.
is, right,
The alternative would be to request a variance, but it would be difficult to meet the criteria that complying with the 20% impervious limit is a practical difficulty when the house already has a garage that complies and provides storage spaces required by the ordinance. The second garage is a convenience or a luxury, not necessarily a necessity for reasonable use.
so their alternative really would be, if they didn't pave that area, they're gonna have to expand the garage,
Correct.
Which would also kick it up over.
which would also kick it up over.
But I mean, you're saying if they're calling it a garage, I mean, can it just be storage or whatever? Like if it's not gonna have, you know
So
what I mean?
our concern is that it's been designed for vehicle access.
Yeah.
So the recommended condition is that if you're not going to pave that and then reduce impervious elsewhere, make it so a vehicle can't go through that tunnel. Then it could be used for storage.
And can we ask?
Oh, absolutely. Mr. Smith, Brad Smith, could you handle this? Not sure how I'm supposed to.
So this, the whole driveway thing seems like a sticking point. What is your thought, or how are you going to fix what they're saying, if they're saying that's one of the stipulations?
Well, the property right now has over 30% impervious.
Right.
Even with the expansion and all we're doing, we're reducing it significantly. I did submit a drawing from Cornerstone with pervious pavers to get me to the garage, but that put me at 23% even though they're pervious, but they're not accepted in Bayport.
Yeah.
So that was what I was proposing to do, for me to get down there,
Okay.
because I'm in a household who will soon have 4 drivers. I've had my mother-in-law living with us for 10 years, and I have 2 kids that'll be coming up.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, no, finish. No, you finish your section.
So is the upper one 3-car or 2-car?
2. Again, I was keeping as small a footprint as I can and utilizing the space below it.
Yeah,
It works to have parking.
yeah.
And then the downstairs one right now is big enough for the 2 of us to park, and our personal watercraft in the winter, and snowmobiles in the summer
Yeah,
for storage.
yeah.
But the actual size of it going up was built just big enough to be what the upstairs garage needed to be.
Yeah.
It just worked out with what was below
So really, your option is somehow building taller or something.
Well-
I think this is a really creative solution to the parking problem, and I think this is a kind of exciting and interesting design, but hopefully you can figure out a way to work within the city's requirements.
it. Yeah, right now the existing driveway is like the driveway elevation of what the tunnel is. We're
Yeah.
not going any lower.
Yeah,
It
I'm
would be
not
like
worried
the
about that, I'm
existing-
just, like, it sounds like you have to pave it if you're gonna put cars there.
I would be fine with paving,
Yeah,
or the pervious pavers, or some solution.
besides that, that seems to be the main concern. I thought the DNR and the watershed district were good with the, he is nodding yes. Any other questions?
I was curious about, and this might be a question for Dan or staff, with moving the existing house, is there anything that we have to consider with that, or, I don't know, it seems like kind of a big undertaking to move a house somewhere else too.
Commissioner Chamberlain, I have been working with Brad for several years. We've been going over this. The existing house is of a smaller ranch, and the previous owners of a lot in town split or subdivided off. So he owns a property with a small ranch, and then there's a second lot that would accommodate the ranch from this property. So we have verified that will meet setbacks, but there is a moving permit and, you know, building code requirements that will go along with that, but that'll be done as a separate process.
Yep, okay, thank you.
So for the, so I just, the picture, so the old, where the old garage is now,
Yeah.
what is that
If
going to
you,
be?
if you put the picture back up of the front elevation, when you see the picture,
Yeah.
when you see the tunnel,
Is that, yeah,
the right side of the tunnel is that existing garage foundation that you see if you drive by with the flat roof.
okay,
So that whole foundation ends up being part of the house.
okay, okay,
And so that's the south side of the tunnel.
okay. So all the stuff that's underneath it has all these like floodplain things, I mean,
That's the
is
existing
that
foundation.
livable space though?
No.
Like you can't, you're just gonna have it
It's just,
down there?
yep, storage space.
Okay, and like whatever.
Wet
walls-
storage space.
Yeah. Wet, like, you'll do whatever, the wall, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
it's the types of materials that are used are all
Yes,
but
but
it's
you're,
just-
it's
it's
along
just
that whole.
masonry.
Underneath, okay. Okay. Okay, yeah, so is the option is that if they want that space as a driveway, they need to have it paved, but then they have to reduce something to get the pervious. Okay.
I don't know what else you can get rid of. Unless you get rid of a bed,
Get rid of what?
like a bedroom or something. You're in on the space. They already made it noticeably smaller.
Yeah,
I've got another question related to the pavers, and like, I'm curious, since I haven't worked with this before, like what, somebody was saying, adding pavers isn't exactly, the city's preference, but it got to like a 23% impervious surface. I'm just curious how that all is calculated or works into.
Well, pervious pavers are accepted in different cities or municipalities.
Sure.
Right now, Bayport is not allowing.
Yeah, so Madam Chair, this is not uncommon here in the valley. Many of the communities, most of the communities have adopted a model ordinance prepared by Washington County some years back, and they all have a commonality in that they don't accept porous pavers as a mitigation or an offset rather for impervious surface. So in other words, we have to count them as impervious surface because the ordinance is silent essentially. And the direction guidance we've been getting from the state and from others going back a couple of decades has been that we need to count them as impervious. Now, they can be utilized as stormwater infiltration practices, as Dean will attest, knows that if they're constructed right, maintained right, they do infiltrate. But they don't get to reduce we don't get to, shall I say it this way, we don't get to count them as pervious. We have to count them as impervious for the calculation. And then either issue variance or use some other method.
So just a basic question here. Since we're, in your favor, since we're looking at the zoning regulations on impervious surface, he's zoned R2, which has a 35%. So why are you saying he has to be under 20%?
Madam Chair, so the basic requirement of the R2 district is 35%. When you're in the lower St. Croix River district, the shoreline management rules are 20%.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So
So it's an overlay and it's the more
It's
restrictive.
not just us, it's the watershed.
Correct, DNR
Okay.
rules.
That's what I was confused about. Any other comments?
I guess since Dan, you're up here, if we were to approve with some sort of condition, you know, for like maybe enhancing the stormwater mitigation or something for that additional impervious surface, is that something that we could do as a part of this? I know you said that granting a variance for the additional impervious surface might be a little tough because it's the second garage instead of the first garage, but just curious if that is something that could be
And is
entertained.
Is it really our variance to grant? If you're saying the issue is the watershed, then we're okay with 23%. It's the watershed that's not.
Madam Chair, so the 20% is state rule that the city incorporates as part of the zoning ordinance, and then the city is responsible for administering it, the same as the variances for grading on slopes of 12%.
And then is the variance the same under the state rule in order to get a variance
Yes.
from the 20%?
Correct. Yep. And we haven't noticed this as a variance application.
Yeah.
You know, the applicant can hear, maybe the planning commission's open to the idea. Maybe it can be looked at as a reduction in the non-conforming condition of the property. And maybe the city engineer can recommend some additional stormwater mitigation that should be included to further offset the 20% plus impervious surface that's on the site.
Probably where I would land.
That's where it seems like they've really trying to decrease the impervious surface and work with this property. And it seems like if there's a way to get them where they need to be, I mean,
Madam Chair.
we just did that with 2 other properties, so, yeah.
Madam Chair, if I can just comment, so if you are thinking about going that route, you have to think about that there is practical difficulties that they have to prove that they need a 2-car versus a 4-car garage, correct? And so in Bayport, we do allow small lots that do not have garages, a variance to have a garage. Now, I don't see too many 4-car garages in Bayport, so if there's a practical difficulty and they meet that criteria, I think then a variance could be considered. So,
Yeah, well,
But not,
But
we're not talking.
we're not talking about the garage, we're talking about the driveway to use something that's gonna be built into it. And I'm not saying that it would work. The garage is already gonna be built into the design. It's the access to that garage. And I'm not saying it would work, but it sure seems like it's worth
Like, is there
looking
other
at.
recommendations from the engineer or whatever that would work besides what you're saying, it's reduce?
and Madam Commissioner, it's not the city's responsibility to design something, right? We're just reviewing what is being proposed.
Madam Chair, perhaps what the planning commission could do is recommend approval of the application, subject to the conditions with additional direction that staff and developer meet to review alternatives to address the driveway access and impervious surface limit prior to city council consideration.
Is there time between our approval and, or can you hold off on bringing it to the city council to have time to try and figure this out?
Commissioner Kelly, this has been scheduled to be on the city council agenda for July 14th. I think we have some time to meet with the property owner and talk about maybe some ways to mitigate impervious elsewhere. There's sidewalk area. I mean, he's so close to meeting the standard. Really, we could maybe do some creative thinking and come up with a solution that would both accommodate that additional parking and garage, but also meet the 20%, which, you know, is for water runoff. He's right on the river there, and then we have to consider the ramifications of allowing that above the 20%, potentially when you can't substantiate the criteria to meet the variance. So we will work with the property owner to try and come up with some solutions, and I think to Dan's point, to incorporate that in motion would be appropriate.
All right, then I'm going to move to recommend the city council approve a conditional use permit with review of possible I don't know if I'm saying it correctly.
Madam Chair, recommend approval of the conditional use permit application subject to the conditions outlined by city staff, with the direction for city staff and the developer to have further discussions regarding garage access and impervious surface.
Yes, that.
Yes.
So subject to the finding of fact and conditions already in the approval recommended by staff, with talking about the impervious surface. All those, is there a second to that? Did somebody say give me a second? Oh, there.
The attorney did.
Oh, okay. Okay, we have a second. All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. Good luck. Okay, next, application number 4 is the Bayhaven project. This is to consider a final plat for Bayhaven at Bayport development, including new construction of 35 single-family villas and a 70 unit multi-family rental property located at 4745 Stagecoach Trail, submitted by Pratt Homes. Dan, could you present this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Pratt Construction Incorporated is here this evening with their final plat application for Bayhaven at Bayport. You'll recall back earlier this year, the Planning Commission reviewed the preliminary plat and the PUD General Development Plan for Bayhaven, encompassing the 35 single-family lots and the one outlot, the other lot for development of a multifamily or townhouse use. Those were approved by the City Council on February 3rd. So now, again, we move to the stage where they're crossing the i's and dotting the t's on the subdivision application itself. This is really just a technical review to look back at the preliminary plat approval, see that the developers followed through with the conditions of approval, that they've submitted construction plans for their public streets and utilities that comply with the city's construction standards and are reviewed by the city engineer, and then move forward to execute a development contract, record the final plat, actually subdividing the property, and then begin moving dirt and constructing homes. So the site that you're familiar with is located south of 5th Avenue North and east of Stagecoach. It was annexed to the city and guided by the comprehensive plan for low-density residential dwellings. It was zoned to PUD, Planned Unit Development District. This is a zoning district specific to this piece of property that sets forth the allowed uses, including the single-family villa homes and the multiple family or townhouse uses within that one lot, and also establishes the performance standards for it, including lot requirements, setbacks, street design standards, etc., that are all unique to Bayhaven. The surrounding uses include the ISD 834 property to the northeast and Barker's Alps Park, also to the east. There are single-family dwellings both within Baytown Township and Bayport to the south, including the Inspiration neighborhood and open space, and then everything to the west of Stagecoach Trail is obviously within Baytown Township. The final plat was established with lot requirements specific to those 35 single-family lots, setting forth the minimum lot width and area requirements. Essentially, anything pertaining to the design of the subdivision is consistent with the preliminary plat approval, thus compliant with the PUD district. Right-of-way is being dedicated for public streets with the final plat, including right-of-way along Stagecoach Trail, which is subject to review and approval by Washington County. There's the boundary street, First Avenue North, coming off of Stagecoach Trail into the development, which now is a boundary line road between the city of Bayport and Baytown Township. Necessitates an agreement between the two jurisdictions over how that roadway is going to be constructed, and basically that the city is going to maintain that going forward, and the township has that agreement for their consideration. Interior streets were designed with a unique standard, a narrower right-of-way and a narrower street section than would be typical. The idea is to move the homes as close as possible to the interior of the development. You can see on the aerial how the perimeter of the property is substantially wooded. And so to minimize tree loss, basically put the development as much in the center of the property as possible. Pedestrian access to this project would be accomplished with sidewalks connected out to Stagecoach and a trail along First Avenue North that will be extended all the way to Barker's Alps Park, and then there's sidewalks on the local streets within the project. The city engineer's office has reviewed the construction plans for the development, including utilities, stormwater, the streets, etc., and has their memo as part of your packet. There are also drainage and utility easements dedicated over the perimeter of each of the single-family lots and Lot 1, Block 5, the multiple-family project, and Outlot A as well. There will be a homeowners association as part of this development to take care of maintenance and architectural requirements, etc. Park dedication requirements for this project will be unique in that the city will not accept land, but we are in fact going to take the acquisition of the trail corridor between the development and Barker's Alps Park as credit against that park dedication fee, benefiting the city's overall park and trail system. So city staff is recommending approval of the application. The Watershed Management Organization obviously had reviewed the preliminary plat and given preliminary approval, as well as Washington County the same on the right-of-way dedication for Stagecoach Trail, but additional comments may be pending. We are recommending approval subject to 22 conditions in our report from June 17th.
Thank you. All right, I would like to now open the public hearing and invite anyone wishing to comment to come forward to the podium. Please state your name and street address for the record. Anyone? I don't think so. The developer is not presenting at for this part.
Madam Chair, Mr. Pratt is here, or his team, if anyone needs to make a comment or if there are questions.
All right, then I will move to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
I second. I second that.
Long day for all of us here. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. All right, at this time, I would like to entertain further discussion or questions from the Planning Commission on the application. So we received this comment from a person who lives in Baytown Township, and he talks about that there's an easement that was platted in the 60s, and that is going to be where the road is going to go. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, if I can just address the comments that were received. City staff did have the opportunity to review that. Unfortunately, most of the comments raised should have been raised at the preliminary plat stage. We're past the point where the city council has given approval to the overall subdivision design, including the public right-of-way, the street layout, etc., to the effect that the developer has entitlements to move forward with the project subject to those conditions as stated with the preliminary plat. So we can't necessarily go back and revisit those concerns in the memorandum. We do still have conditions open both for the Bay Haven project as well as the at-home apartments application regarding landscaping, and that's something that city staff has indicated both to the resident as well as Baytown Township officials that we're willing to work with them to address their concerns pertaining to the visual impacts of the development to the extent possible.
Yes. My question was really about the mature trees there and if there are ways to work to save as many of those as possible.
Yeah. Madam Chair, so the mature trees that have been identified for removal are obviously within the public right-of-way that was established with the original Baytown Township plat. So there isn't necessarily a right or an ability to require those not be removed. Tree preservation measures could be looked at to try and carefully ensure that you're not damaging properties that are or trees that are within his property as part of that process. And that's something city staff can work through as part of the construction initiation.
That was what I got out of this letter that I wanted to make sure was addressed. Anyone else have questions?
So is whatever road we're talking about, that's, I mean, a public road?
Madam Chair.
There's an easement.
So you can see on the aerial photograph, this corridor right here, south of the blue line.
Not have it.
Oh, you don't have?
Took it away.
Oh, hold on.
This way.
All right.
Too fast. I'm looking at it. All right. So the blue line on the south side of the development,
Yeah.
this is public right of way. So what the letter property owner indicated as easement, it's actually platted right of way, public property.
Right.
Even though they were using private driveways within that space. So now basically the private driveways are being taken out for the purpose of constructing a street within public right of way.
So, I mean, that is not his property.
Correct.
He's using it.
Right.
Okay, I understand. But yeah, saving as many trees as you can, or, mitigating certain ones, I mean, hopefully that's in the plan, or they'll talk with the city and the builders.
City staff is willing to work with this to the extent that we've discussed planting additional trees in the right of way, which is typically gives public works and engineering people hives, the idea that you put a tree in a right of way.
Yeah, and I'm not assuming that will be possible, but if there are ways to keep trees, that's always, especially mature trees, it's always to the benefit of the community. Any other comments? Yes,
But I
please.
wanted to finish if you.
No,
have
go ahead.
more. Okay. Well, in relation to the trees in the right of way, I really value the ability to have trees in the right of way. I think it provides traffic calming, it provides shade, especially once the trees are grown. And notice that, so as a background, I'm a civil engineer and I design roadways for a living, so have some knowledge of this as well. I did notice that the boulevard areas, the space between the sidewalk and the curbs are fairly small, but if there's any way that we could maybe select species or something that can work within that smaller right of way, I think that would be, at least in my opinion, desirable. And I'm sure city staff can work that out as part of future efforts with this. The other, I have another question, or question, I guess is the right word. So I really appreciate the trail connection between this development and Inspiration, and I think there's Barker's kind of in whatever connects to the neighborhoods, we'll say. I noticed that's 8 feet wide. And considering that this is kind of a dead-end development and whatnot, is that trail, if there was some emergency to close the only access to this development, could that be utilized as an emergency access at some point in time? Maybe John, that's a question for you, if you think that's appropriate, or
We haven't looked at it as such.
Okay.
So it would be designed as a trail. We had to take it, on the road, okay.
Because that is a concern that I have, and especially because the grade on that roadway is gonna be pretty, it looked fairly steep, at least from the plan, I didn't calculate it out myself, but, from the top of the development down to the stagecoach, and I could see that potentially being an issue. So I'm kind of wondering if that is a condition that could potentially be made for this to widen that to 10 feet to provide a little more emergency access. And city staff can tell me if we're past that point or not with this approval process, but I would think that might be reasonable. So
Because is there just one entrance and the fire department's all fine with that? Is that true?
Correct. Madam Chair, so the entryway to the development, the street section is wider as at Stagecoach, and it narrows down past the first intersection, so that would help address, potential blockage issues.
Okay.
Sorry, a little more.
Please, do not apologize.
I thought, I'm not sure if this was in a packet material somewhere or if this was something I heard, but the intersection at Stagecoach and this new, existing / new street, was there consideration that that was going to be changed to a roundabout or something else at some point in time in the future? So can you elaborate on that?
So Washington County, as part of their review, as part of their review, did identify the need for future upgrade of that intersection. So the developer, at his cost, had a roundabout designed for that intersection that would not impact their project, that met the approval of Washington County. So that would be a future improvement when traffic volumes warrant.
Okay, and is that something then is this development contributing towards the cost of that at some point in time, or is that?
That would essentially be a future construction project when warranted. And I believe the county has said their current cost share policy is that the city would be responsible for 25% for the leg that enters this development.
I personally very much appreciate roundabouts. I think they're great for mobility and safety. And
In that area, Stagecoach is currently very difficult to navigate, so roundabout might help that, even just the way it is right now. Any other comments? I would like to, at the last meeting when we talked about the initial plat, you assured us that you were Mr. Pratt, is that what your name is? You assured us that you were talking to people about the multifamily part of this, and I really appreciate that we are going to be discussing an application for that. So I just wanted to say thank you for following through, because it we had distrust after previous experiences, not with you, but a lot of people in this city were concerned about that, so thank you.
Leanna, why don't you come right on up?
You want me to start now?
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
no, just to introduce, I think you're this one.
Well, just a second. I want to introduce At Home Apartments, now that you've brought this up.
Yeah,
And I want to make sure that you understand these are very highly qualified developers of the apartment building, and they'll go into the particulars here. And also Ellen is here, her partner, and we're now going to be able to move into that, but I wanted to acknowledge your thank you.
Yeah. Well, and we'll talk about that momentarily, but things are moving as you said they were going to, and I, at least as a community member, really appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments on the Bayport?
do you mind if I ask, for a motion, what would be appropriate?
Oh, sure.
Dan. So Dan or Sarah, whomever. and apologies, I'm coming into this process midway through the stream, so I'm just kind of asking to make sure that what I would suggest is still okay at this point in time. So what I'm looking to do is make a motion to approve with the stipulations and stuff, but adding in the conditions that the city and developer investigate the suitability of upgrading the trail connection to Barker's Alps to 10 feet wide to provide potential emergency access. And then also for investigating the suitability of certain trees within this development as appropriate for the context of the right-of-way size. Is that all okay at this point in time?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So with regards to the trails, I just suggest modifying condition number 11 to include an additional clause at the end to say, where it says, subject to review and approval of city staff, including investigation of adequate width and weight capacity for emergency vehicles. That way we can review that as the city engineer works with the development team. With regards to the landscaping, again, because this is narrower right away than typical, the street section is narrower. It was specifically designed to move that sidewalk and make the boulevards as narrow as possible with the idea that trees would be placed in the front yard, not the boulevard. And
So, Madam Commissioner, so we've already had conversations with Pratt Homes about the boulevard trees, right? Yeah, so the discussion was that they will be on the back side of the sidewalk, but still close enough to potentially provide shade for not only the sidewalk, but for part of the road. Yeah, so we've had issues in the past, obviously, with uplifting sidewalk, curb, different things like that. So that was kind of our compromise at that point. The other thing that we see a lot is, especially in the inspiration development, where it's a requirement that every homeowner or the HOA is required to trim trees. It doesn't happen. And so to try and eliminate some of that, that's it, workload on staff, different things like that. That was our reasoning there.
Is there a requirement then for each of the lots to have certain tree plantings with this? I'm just wondering how to enforce that idea.
Madam Chair, with the preliminary plat, there was a landscape plan that was approved that did include at least one tree, not two per lot.
You can make a recommendation, sorry, Madam Commissioner, you can absolutely make a recommendation for more. So.
Would you like to make a motion?
All right, I will make the motion.
Or I can if you.
I will make the motion to approve. Motion to approve.
Here.
Sorry,
That's right.
newbie here.
Right up here.
Okay. I would move to recommend to the City Council to approve the final plat for Bayhaven at Bayport, subject to the conditions of approval recommended by staff with the change in item number 11.
As stated.
And to work for city staff to work with the developer to maximize tree coverage in the frontage of these properties as much as deemed feasible.
All right, I second that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, number 5. Application is to consider a planned unit development for Bayhaven at Bayport Development for 70 multi-family rental units located at 4745 Stagecoach Trail, submitted by At Home Apartments. Sarah, will you introduce the applicant?
This is Leanna and Alan from At Apartments. I believe Leanna's going to take us through.
So I can figure this out.
Yes.
It worked. Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioner Siegfried, and Chamberlain. My name is Leanna Stefaniak. I'm the president of real estate and development for At Home Apartments, and I also serve as our company's general counsel. We are very pleased to be here tonight to present our application to you as the multifamily developer and partner for Bay Haven. This is a very exciting project for us, and we were pleased when Len reached out and asked, could you do this? At Home Apartments has a very reputable history throughout the Twin Cities. Our company was formed over 30 years ago, doing just this, just multifamily management and development. And I think one of the things that makes us stand apart from other developers, maybe you've had experience with in the past and even in other communities, is that we own and manage and develop for ourselves. So when we are coming before you tonight, the project that we are going to present to you, we intend to own this and operate this for decades to come. So we're not a developer that's just going to come and be here for 2 years and we're going to sell and flip out. And the reason why I want to make that distinction is because we want to be good stewards and good partners of this community. We approach new communities when we're bringing in projects for housing. One of the key components that we make is, will our family want to live here? And if that answer is a no, we move on. We know that our families would want to live here, and we're very proud of the project that we're going to present to you tonight. One of the fun facts is, at the meeting that you had in February, Mr. Keeley from Collage Architects presented what the multifamily apartment could look like. We have worked with Pete Keeley as our primary design partner for over 30 years. We, together with Collage and At Home, have produced over 1,000 new apartment units throughout the Twin Cities. So in communities like White Bear Lake, Eagan, Mendota Heights, Vadnais Heights, we have a very strong partnership. So when we saw the proposals that you guys reviewed and approved at the preliminary plat, we already knew Pete was 85% there because we've worked with him so many times. But one of the things that, as we reviewed the plan, that we knew as somebody who's going to hold on to this property for a long period of time, there were some tweaks that we needed to do for the feasibility and efficiency of the apartment building, but again, also for the longevity of the apartments. So I really quick with this application, if I could just kind of go through our slide deck with you, and then review some of the changes that we are proposing and walk through the rationale on that, and then touch on a couple of components that I think maybe you discussed in February, including parking ratios and real world data that can help us kind of get over maybe some of those obstacles that maybe were still present from the February meeting.
Okay, for some reason your slide.
I know, it just timed out on me because
Oh, okay, all right.
I was talking too much. I'm so sorry. So
Yes.
there we go. So these are just some examples quickly of some of the projects that we have produced with Pete Keeley throughout neighboring communities. This is Boatworks Commons in White Bear Lake. This is a reserve at Sono and Vadnais Heights. Some of the interiors of how we design our units. This is the reserve in Mendota Heights. And I think actually some of these images might have been in your preliminary packet. I think Pete snuck some of those in too. Again, just some other elements of what our communities look like. This is kind of the gathering spaces and what we know that the residents kind of need to create that connectivity and create community within the project itself. So just a few samplings of what we can do. You know that we're a real company. We deliver a great product. So hopefully that satisfies some of the concerns from previous experience. These are our development plans for the Bay Haven apartment building. At first look, you're not going to see a lot of difference from what Pete and Mr. Pratt presented back in February, just some tweaks that we needed to do as long-term operators and owners. So the lower level plan has not changed. This still includes the 100 parking stalls that were underground, heated underground parking stalls. This is the first level floor plan. Again, not much has changed. A couple of corners have been pulled in and reduced. Corners are expensive, and so we had to adjust some of them. The architect can sometimes get a little far ahead of us, so we had to pull some of those corners in. But that terrace over the parking deck still exists for green space and other gathering space for the residents to enjoy. Second floor is the same. Third floor, again, the only thing that really changed here was changing some of the decks, pulling in some of those balconies a little bit, adjusting corner lines, but roughly the same with what you approved back in February. And then the addition here, this is something new. We included in our development plans in our application a fourth floor amenity deck. And why we knew that this is important. As an operator, when you're thinking about a new community, what do our residents need? What do they need to have in order to stay in the community, be long-term residents, establish that connectivity amongst themselves, and not only just who living in the apartment building, but who also is going to be, residing in the villas, and how are we going to bring all those folks together. And when we looked at what Pete had presented in February, we were missing that gathering space, that community space. And so looking at how we could integrate this without impacting the height. We knew that the height of the building was important, not only for the residents of Bayport, globally speaking, but also for the residents who are going to be buying the villas and what are they going to see from the streets. So what we did is we built the 4th floor amenity deck into the existing roof line. So not trying to create another whole 4th floor. There's not going to be housing. It's not, no housing units are up there, but rather a community room, a wine bar, or rooftop deck. One of the things that makes Bayport so attractive is the fact that it's in the river valley. And how can we expose our residents to that benefit as well? So adding this rooftop deck into the building line again is going to allow the residents who live in this building some views of the river valley and, depending on the time of the year, even partial views of the river. And to get it up to that height that's over the tree line, at 30 feet you can't see anything with the trees being there, but if you bring it up just a little bit more, you can see into the river. So I'll show you that slide deck in just a moment, but wanted to really explain why we feel that we need to have this. Our concern again is the longevity of this project, and without some of these gathering spaces, it's just an apartment unit. We want it to make it feel special, we want it to be an integrated part of this community. So here is just some of the renderings that we tweaked. Again, if you compared this to what you saw in February, not a lot has changed. We've added a little bit more stone actually, but again, pulling in a couple of the balconies, adjusting the corners of the roof line, and pulling in some of those corners. That's roughly all we've really changed for what you've seen in what you saw in February. This is the view of the site entry, the southwest corner. Again, just a little bit softer corner on the front end, but very similar to what we previously was approved. This is the view at the northwest corner. Views from the east side, and just if you look right here, this is when you're standing at the driveway of one of the villas, so you're looking up, you want to see what you're going to be looking at if you were to buy one of the villa homes. You can barely see the pergola of that deck. So again, really trying to incorporate that design into the existing roof line to not be intrusive, and to keep in harmony with the architectural style and massing that you guys approved back in February. And again, this is a view of the south corner. Again, you can just start to see it, but it's not really anything higher than the actual height of the building from the midline. It only increased 1 foot when we added this deck. So going from 35 to 36 feet. This is an aerial looking over the top. Obviously, no one is going to see this unless you're in a drone or an airplane. That's what you're going to see. But we wanted to show you what this gathering space could look like and how it would be programmed. Again, interior space, restroom, and then this rooftop deck with some planting, some astroturf, and just other grilling stations. These are just, again, the height, the elevations showing just a couple changes that we made. Here in the south elevation, you can see the roof deck that we are proposing right there. And then this again, this is just the other side. Again, you're seeing the community deck right here. And then finally, to get to the height. Again, I know that there was an extensive conversation that happened at what the height of the building was going to be, whether there was going to be 4th floor living. Again, we're not going to have 4th floor living here, but you can see that it's roughly, with this 4th floor amenity deck, the height of the building has not really changed. And that is purposeful. We want to respect what was approved back in February and the integrity of the initial development for Bay Haven. So I thought that diagram would be helpful to give some context as we continue the discussion. The next would be the Bayport view. So this is that document that I was discussing of how the community deck gives us the views of the river valley and potentially the water. And so you can see on here, here's the apartment building right here where my little guy is, and then what you can see with the height of the building being now what we're proposing. Again, this one shows the height of the building with the 40-foot blocks of the trees. So as you get out, any tree over the 30 feet, without that amenity deck, you're not going to see anything if you live on the 3rd floor. And then here's just a radius, again, showing what you can see from the various vantage points of that rooftop deck. I can pause there for questions, otherwise I would like to get into some of the other elements that I know were concerning during the preliminary plan.
I do have a question on the deck.
Yes.
Is it gonna?
You want to go back to that top area?
Have a view of the prison?
No, because you're going to be, if you're on the deck, you're going to be turned around, you're looking at the building, the roof line. So,
Okay. Because that sort of, at least for a little while since it's closing, it interferes
yes.
with your aesthetic.
Yes, I understand.
Any other questions about what she said so far? Okay, please.
Okay, so with this intended project, we do, what was approved was 35 to 70 units. We do intend to build this out to be the 70 units and be a mix of a couple studios, ones, and then 2-bedroom units. 70 units helps make the project economically feasible, and it does provide a little bit more of that missing housing stock to help fill in your housing needs. And it helps with getting the density for the overall project and what was required at that preliminary plan. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about with you was the parking ratio. I know that the city has a requirement that we have a 2-to-1 parking ratio. And that's not uncommon. Lots of communities have had that, especially communities that maybe haven't had as much development. It's a kind of a carryover from the 80s into now. It's 2025, it's a little antiquated. So I just wanted to kind of give you some real world data based on the projects that we currently have. As I said, we're owners and operators of our own property, so I was able to dial in to see how many registered cars we have at each property to help you get more comfortable with that ratio. At 1.7 for 120 parking stalls for the 70 units, we do feel that that is adequate and does allow a little bit of surplus. In the packet that I provided, or the narrative I provided for our packet, I included a table that showed 4 different properties for at-home apartments. One in Mendota Heights, one in Badness Heights, one in Egan, actually 2 in Mendota Heights, and then 1 in Egan, just to show you different communities and how they live. And even at the communities where we were built at or close to 2-to-1 ratio, we had a surplus of parking. The actual registered cars per unit ranged from 1.28 to 1.53. So even with a parking ratio of 1.7 per unit, knowing the history and how our residents live, we do feel comfortable that that's an appropriate parking ratio and will allow some surplus for guests even internally. And we can look at how we can program that a little bit further. In other communities that we have, we've allowed some guest parking inside where they get a special parking code. So we can continue to look how we're going to program that, but I just wanted to help give a little bit of background and some data as to why that 1.7 parking ratio is supported. So with that is, those are the changes that we made. Hopefully they are not too aggressive. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, let me follow my procedures.
Okay, follow your procedures.
Dan, did you have anything you were going to add on this? Okay, let's have Dan talk next.
I will.
We will call you back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While the screen comes up, I can say with confidence that back in February, you can't imagine this is how well this would have worked out. And it's to Mr. Pratt's credit for the investment he made in the architectural plans and the site plans for this piece of property, and then the partnership he's found with At Home Apartments to take what was presented at a concept level and basically bring that forward exactly as the Planning Commission and City Council saw. So the previous approvals basically looked at this lot in a concept form. Obviously, everyone wanted to see that building that was shown, and that's what's in front of us now. Basically, again, the site, same as Bayhaven, it's within the development itself, surrounded by the single-family lots, with the Baytown lots to the south and then the Inspiration. The building plans, again, very consistent, and obviously Leanna did an excellent job summarizing the changes and their rationale behind that additional 4th floor. City staff, Pratt Homes and At Home Apartments met when they became involved in this project to discuss this 4th story, and we got finished and no one had any comments. They very carefully inserted that 4th floor into what would have been the pitched roof of the 3-story structure so that it's not apparent to any use surrounding the property. And obviously provides benefit to their project and adds desirability to it as a location within Bayport. So city staff considers the increase of the 4th story and that extra foot that the measurement moves up as a result of this to be insignificant. Their preliminary floor plan that they outlined is basically half and half, single bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. That also plays into the parking discussion that Leanna went over as well. That's the roof deck, again, I think that was covered very well. The site plan requirements was basically fully developed as part of the initial Bayhaven application with the setbacks established. The landscape plan was incorporated as part of that project. To the parking, we outlined in our report, looking at the information provided by At Home Apartments. From our experience in other communities, we agree that the 2.0 stalls per unit is out of date. A lot of cities still use it, but this is an item that's being constantly reviewed with the boom in multiple family housing. We're seeing substantially lower requirements. And looking at Institute of Transportation Engineer parking study data, they're over parking the site still. Not only what they have in terms of the interior garage, the surface stalls, but then they do also have the benefit of the 9 stalls adjacent to the site on the street, taking advantage of some of that pavement, at least for a temporary use situation. Pedestrian access to the site is obviously well connected with the rest of the neighborhood and over to Barker's Alps Park as part of the overall development. And the engineering, again, was considered as part of the overall development of the site, particularly with regards to the impervious surface and how to manage the stormwater. So everything is well in order in terms of moving that portion of it forward. So city staff is pleased to recommend approval of this, subject to the 11 conditions outlined in our June 18th planning report.
All right, so next I will move to, or I would like to open the public hearing and invite anyone who wishes to comment to come forward to the podium, state your name and street address for the record. Okay, then I'm going to move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I would like to entertain further discussion or questions from the Planning Commission on the application. I have some questions, probably for At Home Apartments. First one is, if you could come up to the podium, thank you, just so everybody can hear. What are you looking at for cost of the different units? I know that it's very early stages, but I know that comes into how you look at.
Sure. So yes, it is a little preliminary for pricing, but I would say on average, our ask for rent is $2 a square foot.
Okay, so can you?
So if it's an 800 square foot unit, it's going to cost $1,600.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then also looking at the letter from Mr. Nass, who submitted from Baytown Township. He has concerns about traffic, and this is 70 units, probably 1 to 2 people at least per unit. Give me your thoughts on that. I know you probably don't have it, because there's just only one access road. I guess that's part of my concern.
And I appreciate that. We did not do a trip generation study for that. That is something we could do if you do want that further on. The traffic concerns here, we do have one way in, one way out, but it is a roundabout within the community, or not a roundabout, but a circle around there. And at 70 units, I would argue, just anecdotally, based off of other projects we've done and trip generation studies, this is a nominal impact to traffic.
Okay.
You're talking, morning peak and afternoon peak, but it won't be intrusive.
Yeah, it will just maybe be a backup at morning and evening.
Perhaps,
time coming in and out of that main entrance.
Madam Chair, perhaps that, again, not having done the trip study, but people are living in their homes differently these days, or people are working remotely. The typical rush hour traffic isn't what we see anymore in post-COVID. So I don't anticipate a backup, and if and when that roundabout does to get designed, that will certainly aid in that flow of traffic.
All right. Those were my main questions. Any questions or comments?
I'll just say I really appreciate how thoughtfully done this was. It looks like, multifamily can look at a wide range of ways, and it could have just put essentially a box on a lot with no amenities and called it multifamily, but really the amenity thoughtfulness, utilizing the top of the parking deck to provide more space for amenities, the overlook and whatnot, I think, and just the way that it's rendered, you have interesting angles and materials and that kind of thing. I thought that was really tastefully done, and I think that'll really blend in well.
Thank you.
I also think just multifamily is something that we need in Bayport, just generally, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide kind of more opportunities for different people of different incomes and stages of life and whatnot to live in our community as well. So I think going to the traffic concerns, I would tend to agree that this shouldn't be, in my experience as a civil engineer, this should not be overwhelming to the rest of the community or anything like that too. So I just want to say I appreciate all of that. So.
Thank you so much.
Remind me, does your unit, are they part of the homeowners association, or they work with the homeowners association, or how does that all work?
Madam Chair, the apartment building will not be part of the homeowners association. Certainly, we are looking forward to a very, friendly relationship between the homeowners association and the apartment building. But the apartment building will just be managed and run through at-home apartments. But we've already started having so many conversations about how we can share the community deck and what kind of neighborhood gatherings we could bring to the association and for our residents in the apartment buildings. But they will be separate entities in that regard.
I was just thinking of sound at night,
yes,
up on the deck or whatever, which is wonderful, but I can see the people in the homes maybe not appreciating that at points.
Sure, yes.
Working together on that will, I'm sure, help with that.
Yes, Madam Chair, and our own residents would have those same concerns. So we do have quiet hours that are implemented in all of our leases and building rules, and so we hold those pretty strictly. So by 10 o'clock, everyone should be in bed.
Any other questions or comments?
I mean, the only thing I have is just the traffic, but that's not necessarily part of this for a study with this plan for just in general with, we're not talking about this, but I'm talking about the school, that, all of that, so it's just a wait and see how busy it gets.
Madam Chair, so when Bay Haven was originally proposed, they updated the traffic study that was done for the elementary school to add in their estimated traffic generation. And that was all found by the city and county to be within the capacity of the roads. Obviously,
The current road.
the current roads, correct.
That is shocking,
That
I
is-
will say.
So over time, there will need to be improvements made to Stagecoach and Fifth Avenue North because those are designated as collector streets meant to carry more traffic. But just in terms of the traffic generation from this development, it's significantly less than you would even get from Inspiration, for example, based on the
And
number of
really,
vehicles.
it's more the school
Correct.
that is going to be the traffic.
And then those are
Major.
very set peak times during 5 days a week, so, which tend to be offset from, this development with Villa Homes is probably oriented a little older home buyer or resident than would a traditional single family neighborhood.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I was just gonna say I'm supportive too of the parking ratio change.
Yes.
I think that like Danny had mentioned, I think that's something maybe that we as a city might want to look at some point in the future just overall. But I think, like everybody was mentioning, kind of patterns have changed since the 70s or whatever.
That's probably a really good idea, especially if there was going to be a large area of Bayport that was potentially up for redevelopment in say 10 years or so.
I don't know why.
You want to look at that, but
And I think too, if there are, events or something, somebody has, there is street parking that's available to that oftentimes isn't utilized, 24/7 by any means, that could, kind of take that, say, higher use or higher parking on time. So I would make a motion to approve my new development for at home apartments LLC for 70 multi-family rental units with the conditions of approval recommended by staff.
All right, I second that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Before I announce the break, I just want to say, so as a downtown Bayport community member, when Inspiration was growing, it took a long time for all of us to come together because it's so separate. So as you guys are all talking about community, think about ways to incorporate the whole Bayport community, because I think that will bring us all together sooner, because you are in a location that's sort of like on the other side of where a lot of people live in Bayport. So, and that's just from experience, kind of watching that happen. So, all right, we're going to take a 5-minute recess and then come back for zoning amendments for anyone who wants to stay, but feel free to leave if you need to. Thank you. Okay, anyway, here we are back to discuss one of the final agenda items, zoning amendments. This is to consider amendments to Appendix B, zoning, Section 301 definitions, and 601 districts related to impervious surface coverage. Consider amendments to Appendix B, zoning 301 definitions, and Section 731 recreation vehicle or trailer regulations related to regulations of recreation vehicles and travel trailers. Consider amendments to Appendix B, zoning, Section 729 livestock related to permit fees for small bird fowl. Sarah, could you present the ordinances, please?
Commissioner Kelly, a majority of the amendments have been drafted at the direction of the City Council. The first amendment is to Section 301 definitions and 601 districts related to impervious surface. I'm going to go through and highlight the changes. You should have in your draft, there were modifications made, deletions were included in strike through, and then the additions are in the red text. So impervious coverage. First, we needed to define what impervious surface included. We did allow for a 50% impervious credit for decks in residential districts, which are not included within a plan unit development, the Riverway floodplain district, or neighborhoods with a homeowners association, because they already have their own regulations separate from this. So mostly this would include downtown traditional lots here in Bayport, which is where the City Council wanted to see that credit given, because sometimes it can be challenging to meet that 35%. And it also, this ordinance amendment clarifies the maximum lot coverage, which includes both structures and impervious surface. That is how staff is administering the ordinance, but it didn't spell out it was hard cover, impervious surface, and also structures. So. The second amendment is to Section 301 definitions and Section 731 recreational vehicle and trailer regulations. This defines a recreation camping vehicle separate from a traditional RV or recreational vehicle that's considered an ATV or golf cart. It also defines a recreation camping vehicle park. And then I just mentioned it defines the recreational vehicle to be consistent with the ATV and golf cart ordinance that was just recently adopted by the City Council. And then finally, it clarifies the regulations for quantity, location, and duration for recreation camping vehicles and permitted uses on residential property. The third amendment is to section 729 livestock, and it's related to permit fees for small birds and fowl. This just removes the fee notation for permits within this ordinance and places it into the fee schedule where all of our other fees are listed. And then the fee schedule ordinance will be updated to reflect this permit fee in an upcoming council meeting. So, as drafted, the amendments will provide more flexibility for property owners when calculating impervious surface or decks, facilitate ease of administration for the police department related to wrecked vehicles, and clarify definitions and regulations to make it easier for the general public to understand. Staff did not receive any public comments on the proposed ordinance amendments prior to the meeting tonight. Staff is recommending approval of the ordinances as drafted, and we happy to take any questions.
I have no questions. Anyone else have any questions?
Commissioner Kelly, just a reminder, this is a public hearing, so if you could open up
Oh,
the
okay.
hearing.
Yes, and then I'll do it in order. It's been a while. Okay, I would like to open the public hearing and invite anyone wishing to comment to come forward to the podium, state their name and street address for the record. Seeing no one, I move to close the public hearing.
I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. At this time, I would like to entertain further discussion or questions from the Planning Commission on the amendments. Any discussion?
So for the 301 or the recreational vehicles, so does that mean if people are in them, it's not just sitting in their yard, like a camper sitting in their driveway?
Commissioner Siegfried,
Or-
yes, it addresses both vacant campers and travel trailers when being parked on property and not being used. And it also addresses when visitors come to a residential property, grandma and grandpa with their RV for the weekend to see their grandkids. It can be up to 30 days parked there and can be staying in the RV. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So they can live in the RV when they're there for the 30 days. So, if Colleen asked me to store her trailer on my lot, that would fall under the 30-day rule because it's not owned by the property owner.
Commissioner Kelly, that's correct. When talking with the police department, that was one of the major violations, that the homeowner or resident had their recreational vehicle and then they were storing their brothers and their brother-in-laws, that sort of thing. So we changed the ordinance to require that the RV needs to be registered to the property owner, and then we allow for that second vehicle for 30 days at a time for visitors coming to the property.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Commissioner Kelly, I should reiterate that we do have homeowners associations and several of the newer developments in the city, and they might have further restrictions on the parking of those types of vehicles, but for right now, this is the city's stance.
Okay,
I just have one question. For those larger vehicles parked in somebody's driveway, is there a minimum distance away from like the street or sidewalk that they have to be parked? I'm just thinking like those larger vehicles can block people's sight for people coming in on the driveway or something versus the street. And I was just curious if there's anything related to
Commissioner
that.
Chamberlain, typically for parking regulations, if they're in the front yard, they need to be on the driveway.
Yep.
If they're in the rear yard, it would be considered more of an accessory structure, and that would, the general rule of thumb is 5 feet from the property line.
Okay.
But there are additional I guess, modifications we can make. If there is an issue with visibility, we can work with the property owner to have that park somewhere else, because the last thing we want to do is create an obstruction.
Madam Commissioner, Jay and I actually looked this up the other day because we were looking at sidewalk blocking. And I believe you cannot block the sidewalk, but I don't know if there's any setback from the street.
Okay, I'm gonna move to recommend the city council approve amendments to Appendix B zoning, Section 301 definitions and 601 districts related to impervious surface coverage. I also move to recommend amendments to B, the city council approve amendments to Appendix B zoning 301 definitions and 731 recreation vehicle or trailer regulations related to the regulation of recreation vehicles and travel trailers. I move to recommend the city council to approve amendments to Appendix B zoning section 729 livestock related to permit fees for small birds and fowl. Is there a second to those motions? Okay, do we need 3 seconds, city attorney?
No, you can do it all in one motion and a second.
Okay,
Proceed.
all right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion's passed. There is no old business, no new business, no general information. Open forum. The open forum is a portion of the meeting for the public to ask questions or comment on subjects related to land use that are not a part of the meeting agenda. Anyone wishing to comment shall state their name and street address for the record. Hearing no one of the public coming forward, we will conclude the business of tonight's agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.